All power to the people. 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 All power to the people.
No more king to our community. No more king to our community. No more king to our community. No more king to our community.
All power to the people. All power to the people.
Welcome to episode 14 of the Cult and Culture podcast. This episode features two prominent members of the San Diego Black Panther Party, Robert Warr and Henry Wallace. Man, this was a huge one. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
I met them at this town hall meeting in City Heights, just like a community town hall meeting, kind of in relation to the Black Lives Matter movement. But there was a couple Panthers that spoke, and one of them I had recognized from back when I lived in Barrio Logan, but then also just like maybe from my teenage years, just as an activist in San Diego, and I recognized one of the dudes, so just hit them up, and they were totally open to it, and it was a trip, like kind of sharing like what we are, like we're Planet B, and we do this podcast, Cult and Culture, and here's the episodes. You want to do this thing, and I think they kind of were like, what the fuck, like,
yeah,
the last dude was a Satanist, and I was like, no, we're just down for like cool shit. And man, it was great. Like,
yeah. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cover nearly enough. Like, I mean, topic's endless.
We scratched the surface, and that was it in an hour.
It's like, fuck, it's over.
So yeah, well, without further ado,
Episode 14.
Robert Warr and Henry Wallace of the Black Panther Party.
No more king to our community.
My introduction to the Panther Party comes through punk rock for me, and it was like going to the Che Cafe at UCSD. There's a big Angela Davis mural, and I was working as when I was like 15, 16 with the Revolutionary Communist Party as part of the Revolutionary Communist Youth Brigade. So like I was really like kind of tuned into like politics, especially for like a young teenager. So I started like seeing a lot of things. And also back then in San Diego, we had a huge skinhead problem, like a huge neo-Nazi problem, which we still unfortunately have. So my education, I guess is somewhat limited pre internet, but like I was really intrigued with trying to like figure out like certain elements of activism, and the Black Panther Party was impressive. But for me, as a white dude or whatever, I kind of like was like, oh, there's this other thing, like the Weather Underground was really impressive, or like the Pink Panther movement, or the Pink Panther, I guess, party,
no,
or
not the Pink Panther, the White Panther.
But there was also the Pink Panther, which was like gay activists that were like part of that.
I heard of them.
Yeah.
I've never heard of the Pink Panther.
It's
Is that right?
It's a true thing.
Well, excuse me, I'm gonna have to do my research. Y'all have threw something in the mix I ain't heard.
But I hadn't
The White
ever
Panthers?
discussed them.
Yeah.
The White Panthers and the Gray Panthers was the only Panthers I heard outside of the Black
So what's
Panther.
the Gray Panthers?
The Gray Panthers was the senior citizens that was being marginalized back in those days. They were under attack.
So were they black senior citizens or just
All
senior citizens? That's crazy.
California was under attack by some, I guess you would call them liberal lawmakers at that time that was looking at a utopia for the senior citizen by having them to quit work at 55, 60 years old and just back up and get in rocking chairs.
So was it like a class struggle for them? Was that the agenda?
It became a struggle because a lot of them refused to go straight to the rocking chair.
Yeah, of course.
They wanted to work as long as they wanted to work.
Especially at that age, 55, you said? That's
55, 60 years. I'm just giving a number.
Yeah, okay.
But it was for senior citizens, and they were going to take away their driving privileges.
Wow.
So they were saying that at a certain age, you are no longer able to drive.
Yeah. And
they were trying to actually pass laws at that time to restrict the senior citizens from participating.
So what year was that?
This was, I guess, in the mid-'60s, late 60s, and they was fighting mad because their rights was being taken away. So they became what's called the Gray Panthers. If you ever get a chance, Google it up.
Okay. Yeah, and so they worked with the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So what about the White Panther Party then? That was white.
The White Panther Party started off with young students that wanted to join the Black Panther Party. So they approached Huey Newton to get into the party. He said, no, this is a black struggle. So we have to stay focused on that. But if you want to help us,
In solidarity,
you can
yeah.
by formulating your own organization.
So was that any way tied into the Weather Underground?
Not at all.
No. Okay, so man, can you, so let's jump ahead then, or maybe, I don't know if it's jumping ahead, but can you differentiate between the Black Panther Party and the new Black Panther Party? Because that's,
Oh, definitely.
do you consider your guys'
And let me jump on that one too.
organization,
Huh?
are you part of the Black Panther Party or part of the new Black Panther Party? Because there seems to be like certain people saying that it has to be like stated that there's two different things.
You see my face, right?
Yeah.
Would I be considered new? No, the new Black Panther Party is a takeoff of the original Black Panther Party, where the original Black Panther Party started off just serving the needs of black people. Well, the new Black Panthers got a twist on that, and they basically the same thing. It's about black people only, you see. Whereas the original Black Panther Party years ago evolved into a very political party when they realized that our struggle mirrored other marginalized groups' struggle, such as the senior citizens, such as the American Indians, such as the Mexicans, such as the poor whites in the Appalachian Mountains. So our thoughts and our program started switching over to, we need to unify with these other groups, and we could all address our issues before the government and the people of the world. So the new Black Panthers, he would know more about their politics, but on the surface, from what I've seen, is they are a takeoff of the very beginning of the Black Panther Party.
Okay.
And like I said, the original Black Panther Party evolved in their theories and how they would approach the struggles that we have today.
I mean, it's a different, obviously,
Yeah.
different world, similar struggles. Because I mean, I think like a big criticism, and correct me if I'm wrong, of the Black Panther Party originally was dealing with like misogyny, right? Because it wasn't set up for like men to be like sort of, I don't know, in the patrolling the streets, and like it was like exclusive of women taking part in the party.
No, the women took part in the party, believe it or not. From what even if the Black Panther Party had that mindset, the women came in strong.
And also, we're talking about a completely different era. Like, so there wasn't the same sort of like social changes that we've experienced in the last however many years. 50
Right.
years, you know,
it was a different world back in those days where men was the dominant gender.
Yeah.
But as we brought the women in and the women became part of the Black Panther Party, we started evolving. See, that's the difference in the original Black Panther Party.
Okay.
We evolved because as we grew, we learned that we need to address women's issues too.
That's another
so
struggle.
As we went along, it didn't was a man and woman thing. It was comrade.
Sure.
I didn't say, your soul sister. We said soul sister, but that was on the surface of it. The real thing is that we are comrades in the struggle together. So that's why you see the pictures of the women had guns and babies, as well as the men had guns and all, because we evolved because of the education level. You got to understand the Black Panther Party was many moving parts. You had those that was educated students. You had professional people come in there. You had people straight out the military came up in there. And you had people straight off the streets. So you had a bunch of different people in there, and they came together on the guys that we had to straighten out the situation that is still predominant today of being disrespected as a people. See, and so we grew to accept the women as our equals, even though we knew that we still man and woman. We accept her as equal because she could shoot just as well as a man can. You see, so she had my back and I had her back.
Yeah,
and that's why you see the illustrations by he was our illustrator, Emory Douglas. that he had all these pictures that showed a unifying force between a man and a woman.
Sure.
So we recognize the fact that they was just as much in the struggle as we were.
So I mean, for me, like growing up too, I would obviously like in a different era than when you did, but
Right.
it was important for me to see, like, you know, and especially like geographically or whatever, like, and you know, so close to Los Angeles or whatever, but like at UCSD, seeing like the mural when I was a child of Angela Davis, and then like researching her and seeing this woman like speaking at, like, she gave that speech at Madison Square Gardens, I think,
Right.
like behind bulletproof glass. That was like wild to see as a kid, and to like try to wrap my head around what race relations were, or like racial injustices were, you know. I mean, I'm talking like, I think I was like 13 or 14. I'm just like, what is going on? Like, there's this thing that, like, you know, I felt some sort of, I don't even know, I don't know what the right word is, but regardless, like, that was my introduction, like, was like the female Black Panther,
Right.
you know, members.
But now, you know, and I know we holding the conversation, there's no structure really to what we're talking about, but if you look at the Weather Underground, the women of that, it was a mirror of the Black Panther Party, but they were white.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And those women was on equal par with the men.
Sure.
They would set more bombs than the men's
Yeah.
back in the
Yeah,
day. I'm
yeah.
talking about they were bombing
But they also,
government buildings and
yeah.
everything else. So, and they had real names that was called out.
Yeah.
You know, on the FBI most wanted list, and they were demonized and this and that, because nobody took the time, especially in white America, to pull the fairy tale lenses off their eyes to see what was going on in this country.
Yeah.
You
And especially
see.
then too, I think like women were probably, like, especially with the Weather Underground, they were able to infiltrate, because no one would suspect a woman to go plant a bomb. you know?
Right.
And with,
whites, they didn't want to believe that.
Yeah,
They had to
yeah.
take those fairy tale lens
Yeah,
off. You know, everything's sunny. We're fine, Johnny, and get a little Joey, and let's go to Malibu and have a big old steak dinner. And, you know, we don't have no financial problems, so we can't relate to those people down there. They down there, they trying to rob us and take what we got. We earned this.
Yeah.
But they didn't understand that there was a system that was holding those other people back, where they couldn't make a living or anything like that, thanks to the capitalist system that we have. And like I always tell people, I have nothing against capitalism other than the fact that it should be fair.
Well, it's not. I mean,
should-
I guess there is progressive capitalism, right? I mean, but it's set up. You know, it is set up for white supremacy, right? I mean,
Right.
at least the capitalism that we experience on this planet, or at least in America,
It's
for
just
sure.
In
the foundation.
America and Europe, whoever controlled the powers in those various countries is the ones that would get the money. And so those powers that's above the governments of the world dictates what should happen in each country. And so over here, they dictated that the white European ancestor, the ancestor of the white European, will be the ones that be the dominant force in this country, and we're going to make sure that they have a little more than the others.
Sure.
Then that way we make the others and them fight for whatever, and then we're going to tell the people that we give more to that those people is your enemy.
Yeah. It's the concept of teaching to hate downwards.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're oppressed, but hate the other people that are below you.
Right.
I mean, we see that right now with all of,
you
like,
working
especially with
in
Trump
the kitchen,
supporters.
the other ones is working in the field. So
yeah.
it's the same thing they did with the slaves.
I would say too, what you got to look at with capitalism is where it begins to fall short is just say one person has a real good angle on it and is able to make a wealth a plethora of money. From that standpoint, there's no restrictions as to how much land, resources, and wealth you can obtain. So what happens is a person can buy, thousands of acres, buy all kinds of property, and can consolidate. And at that point, now all of a sudden you have monopolized a situation. And from there, people trying to just use basic economics to get into the system, like your small mom and pop businesses, they can't compete.
Sure.
And so the deal is the not having ability to have restrictions is what opens up the floodgates for corruption, and then that ends up being what dominates in a capitalist society from that standpoint, and that's what we can't control. So how do you prevent that? Because at that point, I have enough money now to buy politicians, lobbyists, and everything else. And so by the time the small little guy tries to get their foot in the door, then they basically are stuck. They can only get so far.
So it's crazy because like at the town meeting we went to, they were speaking about like supporting Black-owned businesses. This is the first time I've ever like really seen that on like on a large scale where people are saying this, and it's in every facet. Even like today, like with the distribution company for the record label I run, we got an email saying like these are Black-owned businesses or Black-run record label, like labels. Like check it out. That's the first time I've ever seen that. But the problem is the business structure is messed up, right? Because like isn't
they're living on shoestring budgets. They can't compete.
The banks.
Yeah.
We got to watch who, because even like when the George Floyd protests first started in San Diego, they burnt the banks down in Lemon Grove, and it's interesting to think like I don't want destruction of property or whatever, but like if we're gonna burn stuff down, that's a symbol of something right there.
That's the reason it was burnt down.
I know, but I agree with you, and it's a but
I had nothing to do with it. I'm just saying
no, but what you said though,
I got to make sure that's known. That was just the symbology of the system.
I was there when I saw it happen. I was out there. I was amazed.
I was in my bed.
But I don't know that. Like I don't really know that. I don't know. Anyhow, I'm going off topic.
Go there.
Well, the point is, what I'm trying to say is like when people are saying like support Black-owned businesses, that's so righteous and it seems really, really important and relevant right now. But we got to understand like who's supporting those businesses or who's funding those businesses. It's the white banks. That's the problem, I think. So
who's funding what businesses?
People like business loans. They're
Black businesses.
Where are they getting loans from? What Black-owned bank is there?
Usually they're getting it from under their mattress.
Yeah, that's
because
the
banks ain't never been a friend of the Black community when it come down to investment.
I mean, maybe credit unions because that's
they
sort of
redline our businesses.
Yeah.
In our neighborhoods, our insurance rates is to the roof when you get a business.
Yep.
When it come down to business loan, you cannot expect the banks to give you nothing because they always want to know how much collateral you got, what you got, what do you own, so that if you fail, then we give you this money. And they won't do that with a lot of the whites that's out in nice little areas and stuff like that. But they will do it to blacks and minorities, especially blacks. You can count on your hand how many black businesses will survive this pandemic right now. And this pandemic right now is being used to clean up a lot of financial mess and everything. There's going to be a lot of businesses that go under, black, white, Hispanic, this and that. And they want to start all over. Because I do believe that it's a possibility that they have a cure for this. But capitalism tend to clean its own little house up when certain people they don't want in the game.
Well,
you keep the people sick and you can manipulate them any kind of way you can. So it's a time that they're going to eventually release a way that people could go back to their normal life somewhat. But right now I think that they're using it against us at this point. And that's a whole different story.
Back to the major capitalism issue, because even like when they had the first the loans that they were giving out, or not the forgiveness loans, right? Wasn't it? And like that like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, or like all these like huge like corporate businesses, like publicly traded businesses, got the money.
Whenever the government give out money, and 9 out of 10, the majority it goes to big business.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to make sure you know as well is oftentimes what a lot of the even major corporations will do, and you find this is a loophole, is sometimes they will have a minority CEO. By having a minority CEO, it opens them up to receive minority type of funding that will put them in the category of a minority small business or a minority business. So now this large corporation is using a minority front piece, in order to have access to both sides of the funding, which would normally go to a black business that is up and trying to make it.
Not normally.
But
so, that's a shell game.
Yeah, it's a shell game.
They play the shell game, you see.
And that's what cuts us out of it as well, is they're doing all they're basically just using all of the all of the loopholes and all of the ways that they can to keep that money in that corporation or funding the large corporations. So even with that, they basically reroute and utilize quote unquote minority benefits to fund them.
And the only reason why they're talking about funding black businesses now is going back to what you said about burning up banks. Going back 50 years ago, when they had riots and stuff like that, it basically burned up the neighborhoods.
Uh-huh.
You see, now the new younger generation is getting smarter. They're attacking capitalism at its core heel, which is their little bank that they give money out to who they want to give it to. So once you start burning up your Walmarts, Targets, and banks and stuff like that, then they want to come to the table and throw a dog a bone.
But let's face it, all those places have insurance, so it's not like Target's like suffering. I mean,
not at all.
Yeah,
but just the fact that you started to burn out. See, they didn't have revolutions before. That happened in Europe, like France and Russia and places like that. And they took a big loss because the people rose up and took control of the government, which was in the hands of the super rich. And so when you do that, then the super rich is on the run. They're going to try and find a way to get that money back. And if we start biting at the capitalist heels as far as banks and stuff like that, then they start wanting to throw you a bone. They want to sound, well, Black Lives Matter, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. You see? Mm-hmm. And they wasn't talking about it until the goddamn Chase Bank got burned down, until Walmart got burned down. Like I said, I do not condone that type of violence at all, but I do know from what I've seen over the years that seems like the only way they want to talk to you. They'll pull the police dog back and everything. They tell the police, y'all better stop doing what you're doing down there because we losing money up here.
Yeah.
If you want to keep getting your donations from us, you need to start trying to make some reforms. You see, the police is the first one they throw under the bus. The same people that they sent at us to disrespect
they're the
our
troopers.
community.
They're the stormtroopers that go out for the fascist dictatorship.
They doing it for the rich.
Yeah.
And now the rich telling them, y'all need to sit down and start negotiating and making some changes.
I mean, let's be honest, like, there's a reason why people say ACAB, because they are all bastards. They're taking this job, and maybe there is a good cop, but it's part of this larger system that's rotten to the core.
That's rotten to the core.
And the crazy thing is, like, I don't know that, like, most cops you see out in the street, like, they're not paid enough to fuck over everybody else. They're not paid enough to, like, destroy people's lives or their,
But they did.
They do.
They've been doing this for 400 years since slavery, and they came out of the slavery back in the day, and they still had that mentality that they can control those blacks.
Well, it's the overseer turned into the officer. That's
right.
It became the same
They
thing.
worked for the slave
officer.
master back then, and they still had that same mentality today. Now, I've seen changes in the system of how they do things. Now what you have is vigilantes within the system. And I believe that we need laws and with law enforcers, but with the understanding that you serve the people. The people
and there's
don't
repercussions
serve
if you screw up and do some shit and, like, hurt someone or kill someone.
Well, I talked to a bunch of them when they kill Alfred Alongo. Mm-hmm. I walked down into their staging area where they were staged in the apartment buildings in El Cajon and talked to them and let them know that, I seen changes in your system. And I said, for the most part, I see that you guys are a little bit more respectful than you was than in my day. I said, but what you have is vigilante officers within your ranks, and you know about them, but you don't say nothing about them. And then when the shit hit the fan, then all of a sudden you guys want to go out there and brutalize people because you let this one vigilante go out there and take people's lives. I said, you have the power to make the change. If you stand up, and tell your superiors about this asshole you got right next to you. I say that maybe you won't have to do the things that you're doing now.
But the person that does stand up to the asshole is going to lose their job. They're going to probably get retaliation, and by some. You know,
well, now
I'm not justifying them.
No,
I think they shouldn't be a cop in the first
right,
place.
they shouldn't be a cop. And if
right.
they're a coward like that, if they're a coward to let a vigilante in there that could set it off with his racist views
Sure.
of how he deal with people, just like they caught the 3 cops the other day on the radio. What was that? They had the car monitored or tapped, and they heard what them buttholes were saying about trying to kill people. Let them bring it. Let them bring it.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
gonna kill them.
Yeah.
We're gonna slaughter them. We need a war to wipe out all those Negroes.
Yeah.
Let me jump in on this too, and tie this into the difference between, kind of going back to one of your questions about the new Black Panther Party. Because, for instance, even dealing with law enforcement, there was cases in Dallas, Texas, where we dealt with police officers being fired because they had dreadlocks.
Whoa, okay.
So going into that, we actually had officers being discriminated within the police department that actually came to the new Black Panther Party to help get the word out, because they were basically getting fired because of their hair, of just having dreadlocks on the force. So even going back to what you're saying, when you have good law enforcement or ones that try to do their job to serve the community, they're up against an infrastructure that just does not support them. And then also tying that into what was the difference between why the new Black Panther Party took more of a isolated approach as far as race goes, was because, for instance, it was started in Dallas, Texas. I got my start in the new Black Panther Party, and it was founded in 1989 by Aaron Michaels. The deal is when I grew up, we used to go to Klan rallies in the community just to be able to throw something at them. So we had active Klan meetings, Klan rallies, and marches in Dallas, Texas, on up through, I want to say, I think it stopped in the mid 80s, but literally just active Klan rallies, and even up into the 90s, I would go places and fleet flyers. When I lived in Florida, in Orlando, Florida, I saw people Klan members actively recruiting in their hoods.
Yeah, sure.
We're talking 90s and the year 2000s.
That's happening in Oceanside in San Diego.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's a normal thing is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So in Dallas, Texas, there was more of a polarization between black and white than what you see out here on the West Coast. I've gotten pulled over by cops. Pulled over by cops, called nigga. Pulled over by cops and unjustly dealt with the search of my vehicles and stuff like that. And we're talking 90s and 2000s. So these kind of things go on. And then if you remember an incident in Texas, in Jasper, Texas, where you had James Byrd Jr., who got his head decapitated from getting drugged behind a vehicle. When we went to that town as a new Black Panther Party, that town was still dealing with elements of segregation. You hear me? Segregation, where you had segregated cemeteries. Blacks got buried on this side, whites on this side. And we're talking now. We're talking in 1990s. You see what I mean? So it was a completely different environment that sprouted up some of that mentality out of the new Black Panther Party, starting in the South and dealing with those issues in the Deep South. And going into one of the things about the police department real quick on what we have to look at, and we're talking about capitalism. Mind you, most structures are operating off of we need to make sure our profits exceed the next year they do this year. Police departments are ran the same way. So from that standpoint, law enforcement officers are expected to write tickets. They're expected to arrest people. They're expected to bring more money in next year for the structure than they did the previous year. Because they need to refund. They want to fund and get better vehicles, fund and get better equipment, fund the entire system. So as a result of that, how can you expect an officer to go out and just simply make sure there's, just basically intertwine within the community and just not arrest? Because they have to arrest, they have to write tickets, they have to do something that's going to bring money to the department. So that is one of the breakdowns when you look at the justice system. Because the officer can't just simply be a friend to everybody.
The minorities.
Yeah.
And then there's like the private prisons, which is
all part of the
insane.
system.
Yeah,
See, so the thing is that officers are expected to be they're expected to be at the front end, making sure this whole system runs. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily written down in paper, but this is what is expected. If you're not writing tickets, then you're going to get talked to. If you're not arresting people, if you're not pulling people over, then you're not doing your job, because the entire system is based upon you incarcerating people, you writing tickets, you putting fines out. So the deal is it crosses beyond that barrier of just simply serving the community, so to speak, as the logos say, into where you have to create levels of enforcement and levels and fine problems. You have to basically find
some of them
something.
is Ku Klux Klan.
And well, yeah, that too. That's obviously what we're dealing with. But
it's
from a corporate perspective, I mean, from a capitalism perspective, what I'm getting at.
Right.
So what happens is, why not target the black community? Because they're already deemed as going to be the ones that's going to be committing crimes. So most of the policing is targeting the black communities, because look at it from this perspective. We have to make our budgets. We have to create this revenue stream. If we go out and attack the poor and minorities, they don't know how to get attorneys. They don't know how to fight these battles. They're going to just basically
whites ain't gonna allow that.
They're going to just accept the system, and they're just going to be they're going to take plea bargains.
And they can't pay fines.
They can't pay fines. So they become the target because they are easy prey. And so that's the part that ties in the capitalism and the racism at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with. So it's just an uphill battle, because you're dealing with both elements coming together, targeting the prey.
So back to because you were kind of maybe bridging the new Black Panther Party back with the original Black Panther Party. Is it still two separate entities?
Yes,
it's two separate entities.
Yeah, they're two separate entities, because basically the new Black Panther Party was established on some of the elements and principles, most of the elements and principles of the original party. But again, going back to what was taking place in Dallas, Texas at the time, was you had high levels of police brutality. You had high levels of racism, blanket racism that was just happening. And mind you, again, it started in Dallas, Texas. One of the things about Texas is Texas has always been a pro-gun state. So being a pro-gun state, dealing with police brutality, what was the best example that you could deal with when you see that law enforcement are going after people unjustly? Man up and weapon up. And so when the examples that we ran to was the examples of the Black Panther Party. And by doing so, it put us in a position where we had levels of equalization. You got a gun, I got a gun, now you're going to talk to me.
Yeah, but like the consequences of like a white person getting shot or a black person shot are vastly different. Yep. So it's not leveled, which is just insane in itself.
Right.
But what the new Black Panther Party was able to start teaching the people was that you have the right to bear arms. You have the right to protect yourself against racism.
And see, that's what the original Black Panthers came out with, until California changed the laws where you couldn't have carry the weapon like in Texas. So. Yeah. And
Texas being Texas, they're gonna fight tooth and nail with that.
Yeah.
Because in Texas, growing up in Texas, as a young man in Texas, we basically decided what clothes we were gonna wear with our weapon. That's how it is in Texas, white or black. You match your outfit with your gun. Right. Texas is still that way and continues to stay that way. And so that's the element that came out of that. Now, of course, the new Black Panther Party had other items or other programs on the agenda, but the stuff that obviously seems to create the sensationalism is always when you try to tie back people wearing black berets with guns. Right. And that sensationalism is what caused it to sprout across the United States, as well as ultimately we ended up working with a guy named Khalid Abdul Muhammad, who was the national spokesman of the Nation of Islam at the time. And because of Khalid being who he is and his ability to speak and just make headways internationally, that brought the new Black Panther Party to a whole new level in terms of its exposure.
Oh, sure.
Right. And then I think the thing that was different is that I don't think that the new Black Panther Party reaches across the aisle to have allies like the original Black Panther. We was finding other people that was having other issues. So that's the difference. The new Black Panther Party is not finna get involved with other groups.
Okay.
Other ethnic groups. Now, we did form coalitions with the Brown Berets back in the days, but we didn't we strayed away from dealing with white people for the most part, period. Because again, in Dallas and in Texas, period, those are the things that you had racially divided lines. So, and then you also had more segregated communities.
So why was the Brown Berets acceptable?
Brown Berets were acceptable because they basically followed a lot of the same mentalities of being, oppressed by white people.
Yeah,
from
they
that
had some of
standpoint.
the same problems, and so the new Black Panther didn't look past that, whereas we looked past that as original Black Panthers. And actually seen that. We seen poor whites sitting up in the mountains with no running water, no toilets, but being exploited for their labor and sent off in those mines like a canary.
Sure.
And they made them think that was the best thing God could have gave you, was to dig for coal for the very rich, you see. And if you're undereducated and you don't know no better, then you would go along with the exploitation.
I mean, that's what we're seeing right now, currently with the political administration.
Right. You
the
got
base or
an
whatever.
ignorant president right now, Donald Trump, that strokes all that. We're gonna bring back the coal mines so you poor little ignorant people can have a job, because those liberal Democrats, they took your jobs away from you. Well, those were dirty, nasty jobs that people could die from with the black lungs and all that stuff. And so what they did with the liberal element of the political spectrum, they created jobs like solar and stuff like that to help those people have better jobs.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump went all the way backwards and said, we're going to open the coal mines back up.
Yeah.
Guess who's going to benefit from it? Donald Trump and his people.
Yeah, the oil companies. So, so like, okay, so I understand the new and then the original Black Panther Party, but what about like Black Lives Matter movement? Is that something that, like, how does that tie into the Black Panther Party?
Black Lives Matter is an extension of the Black Panther Party. The difference is that they're not, from what I've seen, able to or refuse to pick up arms to defend themselves. But they have the youthful energy to execute what they're doing right now.
Pushing for voting and stuff
they're actually an extension of us. They're a little more civil, I guess you might say, because it was different times.
Yeah.
Different time. Back then, police would actually put the dogs on us, beat us with sticks, hit us with the butt of a rifle like it wasn't nothing. We was easy prey for a minute.
So there was a justified reason for resulting to violence. Obviously, you have to fight the oppressor. So So a lot of people now maybe have the privilege of not getting the dogs.
Don't have to do it like that.
Yeah.
They can actually march and let the world know what's going on. And the difference again is that the world sees what's going on.
I mean, now with social media, everything's getting documented.
They killed that man right there on live TV or TV where the whole world could see that these are some real assholes.
Yeah.
They don't value no black life at all. They just sit there until that man died, like strangling a kitten or a dog or something. That's basically what they were doing, and the public was outraged.
Sure.
How dare them?
Yeah. But it's crazy because I remember like growing up and during the Rodney King riots, like and obviously pre-internet, like when those riots started, it was instantaneous. I remember just coming out of my friend's house and it was like this is going on right now, like
people
everywhere,
fed up.
Everywhere.
People was
but
fed up.
The difference between then and now is I think there is unity or solidarity with other races. And back then it was a bit more divided.
It was that he must have did something, Johnny, he had to resist arrest or something like that. So we're not going to worry about that.
Yeah. Regardless, now you see with George Floyd and countless other people, you see it happening. You see, I mean, he cried out for his mother for who can't like find empathy. I mean, people cannot find empathy in that, which is just fucked in itself. But like, how can you really not find empathy in that?
And now they got videos from the past that's popping up now all on social media that show the same thing happening to other folks that died in the early days, calling for their mamas or grandmothers. It was a Mexican guy that they did like that, and he was calling for his nana.
Yeah.
You see. So this stuff been out there. The difference is now you have these cell phones that give you instant video that's
Live
uploaded to
feeds.
social media and go worldwide. So I am so thankful that the capitalists with their little cell phones that they make money off of everybody was used against their asses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so then like again, like to compare and contrast the two times, like, you know, back then you had Hoover and the FBI like infiltrating real revolution.
They controlled the narrative.
How do we know that's not happening now?
It is still happening. Yeah. It still happens.
We have to be as educated as much as possible. Nobody can afford to put their head in the sand no more. The shit is real and it's happening, and it can happen to you.
Yeah.
It can happen to me. As a senior citizen, I could walk out there and they surround me and knock me to the ground and bust my head like they did that 70-year-old man that was just trying to talk to him.
Yeah. And then he was called Antifa, and, you know,
yeah,
just
Donald Trump called him that.
Yeah.
He called him that because he wanted to hurry up and jump on and change what had happened. He knew what happened.
Yeah.
And on that, even on that same note, one of the things that we had found wind of back in the day with the new Black Panther Party, and it was that dealing with the Joint Terrorist Task Force that was funded through FBI, they ended up actually using Dallas, Texas as one of the founding parameters for that, and their target was the new Black Panther Party.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I remember like kind of hearing about the new Black Panther Party being a thing and just thinking like, how is it gonna succeed? The government is not gonna allow that to succeed.
Because see, when you deal in truth, then it's hard for them to really defeat. And with the eyes of the world on them right now, these people ain't telling the new Black Panther ain't telling them no more than what they already know.
Sure.
That they doing some dog shit out there, and you got an organization that's willing to stand up and tell them that they're doing wrong to the people. And so they can't really do them like they did us back in the day when America was really asleep. And as long as it didn't affect my community, I'm not concerned about it. Now it's starting to have a ripple effect in all communities because it can happen to you, happen to me. Like I said, the man that they pushed down the other day, all the white folks was horrified. This is a white man.
Yeah.
And look at what the police did to him.
An elderly white man.
Yeah, elderly white man. If they disrespected him, it can happen to us.
I mean, the craziest thing is to watch that guy fall and see blood come out and watch all the pigs react and just be like, oh, I gotta keep going, you know? It's like, dude, someone needs to just stop working at that point and fucking help a human being.
Help him.
Yeah. Regardless, even if he was Antifa, help the guy. He's about to die.
Right.
Right.
Being accused as an instigator, as it was staged.
Yeah.
Like he did this intentionally, you know, to be able to create conspiracy. And that's kind of where they get us now. On that same note, is they try to tie everything into conspiracy in order to basically nullify it and make it appear as though
that's what they do.
It's not real. So those are the tactics now. So the tactics have changed as a result of social media.
Sure.
So what they do now, whereas back then they could isolate us and try to, you know, come after us directly, now they just use social media and try to inundate people with a lot of false information.
False lies right before
and
your
you
eyes.
don't know what you did.
You don't know what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And they do that. They try to do that with the videos. Now that everybody knows the power of being able to go in and manipulate footage, they even try to say that, hey, this is fake footage. This is, you know, you that's the whole thing like Trump would say with fake news.
Oh, sure.
So, you know, they try to discredit real happenings and real agenda and real things by trying to tie it into somebody being a conspiracy theorist.
So what about like now, as far as like modern times, where like, you know, essentially the Black Panther Party has the ability to control its own narrative. You can put out your own videos and you can do whatever, and you can reach people all over the world instantaneously.
Right.
So I mean,
but we're still up against the same misinformation going out and being spreaded and being put out. And see, the idea that from that standpoint, what you do is you find a majority of your time trying to undo the myths instead of getting the real thing out there. And by the myths being out there first and foremost, that creates a perception. And so now you spend your time trying to clean up your image and clean up your perception before you can even get your foot in the door in order to do the real work. And so that's where we find ourselves having to focus one of the flyers that I put out when we go to rallies is demystifying the myths of the Black Panther Party. I hand out this flyer at the protests and at the rallies because people see a panther and they have this perception. And so one of our recruitment tools is demystifying the myths.
They have a perception that might be good and bad, though, right?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
but the flyer address both.
Sure.
The point is it talks about the myths and the misinformation that's being put out there. And the ones that obviously support us. So from that standpoint, again, all I'm saying is, going back to answer your question, is because it's so easy to inundate and flood social media with misinformation, as Panthers, we cannot keep up with people that on a payroll and with echelons and with algorithms that are able to duplicate and constantly flood misinformation.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with that. You
Sure.
see what I mean? So it still takes, and one of the negative aspects of social media is that you are able to sit back on your laptop, your computer, and see all kinds of things going on.
Yeah.
But then it's different than having boots on the ground. So that boots on the ground element is what we represent in being able to actually talk to your neighbor versus reading about something on the internet from your neighbor instead of getting out and knocking on the door, open the door and finding out, those black people ain't all that bad. So the deal is the perception through social media is hard to defeat because it's constantly being permeated with misinformation. So when you actually take the time to talk to a Black Panther, it's a whole lot different than what you thought because of this perceived, mentality of what a Panther is, even with the new Black Panther.
Sure. So what do you think the best way to attack that is? Like, obviously you said boots in the ground, but like you can reach more people through.
Well, we work with social media.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the point is that we recognize the fact that is a fight. That is a battle that we have to fight on social media, constantly dealing with our image, which is why Henry is so vigilant in making sure the legacy of the party is intact, because real history, real information, real agenda is often suppressed in terms of the what the party stands for and what it does, and continues to do this day. So the problem is it's so easy to inundate with misinformation. So yeah, we do have a Facebook page, we do get out there on social media, we do address it, but can we keep up with the pace of misinformation? No, you can't.
Yeah.
You
And
just
we pace ourselves. We pace ourselves with a consciousness that we're dealing with more than just ourselves. So I'm very, like he said, measured when it come down to implementing any actions by the San Diego Original Black Panther Party, because the people have to have a clean sense of what we're doing. And our thing is that whatever you do in your private life is in your private life at home, but when you're out there on the streets representing the party, you have a certain image, you have a certain way you act, a certain way you character yourself, because people is looking up to you and they're depending on you to be an honest broker out there. And so we want to make sure that stay intact.
I mean, even like going back to like your example of like going next door and talking to your neighbor in person, I think as humanity has like lost that narrative. Right. Like we do result to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter instead of talking to people. And as much as I think I would prefer to not be a cyborg, it's the way of the future. So I mean, I feel like maybe
runaway train.
So we're out of touch with reality, and so what happens is virtual reality is replacing real reality.
We, as in like humanity.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm saying. So from that standpoint, it's super easy to create false information, and it's super easy to create an environment that makes you want to exist in this virtual world. Because, for instance, going back to just something like Facebook, I can create me a Facebook page that makes me look like a superhero. It makes me look like this great and important and powerful person, but in reality, I could be a deadbeat.
Yeah.
And so
it's true right now.
Okay.
And so, those are one of the issues and why people run to social media and Facebook, because they can create their virtual image to be a lot greater than their real image. Sure. So their internal self-reflection they think low of themselves, but when they can put on this costume in front of the world.
So I agree with that, and I'm not discrediting that or disproving that, but okay. I think that there's like, what about like, you know, the larger narrative, like of working with like organizations like Anonymous, or you know, they were like outing Klansmen on Facebook, like that's like seemed like pretty progressive as far as like crushing elements of white supremacy. But I mean, it obviously didn't work because the Klan still exists. But there's things that I think that maybe the Panther Party or other like Black Lives Matter movement could like maybe sort of I don't know, like not should, but could address and bring in as something. Because I mean, man, I looked at
you talking about as far as Klanism,
just
racism,
reaching more people. You know, I mean,
yeah.
Like there's like this insane K-pop thing where they destroyed Trump's rally with, they bought all this, they like
right,
took
that's some kids.
Yeah, and that's
that
awesome.
New generation.
Yeah. But like that's what every activist should like sort of take note of that and like do that kind of stuff.
We got a new generation that's coming up, just like this generation that's able to get the world's attention of what's going on, Black Lives Matter and all that. And all we could do is support them, because as a Black Panther Party, until we come of age for the 2020 and beyond, with the new volunteers that's coming on and stuff like that, that's going to be their task, is to be able to help change the narrative of how the majority of Americans think, which now I'm starting to see that the minority of America is still thinking backwards to racism, because to me the moral majority then stood up. Even I heard what's the guy that got the radio thing, the Christian thing, 700 Club, Pat Robinson. Oh my God, he sold Donald Trump a new butthole. Yeah, Donald, and he supports the Republican Party.
Yeah,
but he said Donald Trump need to shut his mouth.
Yeah.
You know, because the man he got diarrhea.
Yeah, sure.
And Pat Robinson wasn't feeling that, because it was something that he was saying about, I guess, the churches and people going to church without masks or something like that. But it really messed him up. So the moral majority is starting to wake up to that we done put the wrong person in office, and that all these things that he's doing is tearing scabs off and separating the country.
But I wonder if we put the wrong person in there, if we did it. I didn't put him in there, you know.
I didn't either.
So that's something to consider, because it's not really a true democracy, you know.
No,
that's a huge issue.
Yeah, because he got in through the electoral college or whatever that was, because the popular vote he didn't win.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like the opposite of like a microcosm. It's like you look at this bigger thing with the electoral college, people aren't stepping up and being like, oh, there's this, like where the cops are supposed to call out the other cops. Like no one's doing that shit with the politics, you know, or politicians. They're all in there for like their careers, you know, and that's what you know, like no one was stepping up to Trump except maybe Mitt Romney, and that's like he's like one of the worst Republicans that exist, and that was the only guy that had the balls to stand up to
George Bush. The Bushes stood up and all that.
Which is crazy too, because I thought he was, you know, the worst until
even if Ronald Reagan was here, Ronald Reagan would have said something, you know.
Can you just tell the listeners like how to find you, or what's up with like the Panther Party in San Diego specifically, but maybe a larger one for people that hear this, you know, outside of San Diego, just so they can like connect and
Robert Waters is the one that's in charge with handling people that want to assist the party. We do have the Henry L. Wallace Facebook page, as well as the San Diego Original Black Panther Party Facebook. So we're on Facebook as Henry L. Wallace and San Diego Original Black Panther Party. There you can go in and see what's going on with the Black Panther Party, as well as if you want to donate towards the cause, PayPal, Amazon Smile, eBay, and there's our website. We do have a website, so they could go there and see some of the old pictures, as well as if they, like I said, if they want to donate, if they want to know more about the Black Panther Party, if they want to become a member or a friend of Black Panther Party, I suggest that you go on Facebook Messenger and contact Robert Ward Williams, and he can take you to where you need to go if you want to be a member or just a supporter.
Okay.
So he's in charge of all that. Yeah, and if you guys ever get a chance, check out Captain Morgan Lee and the Villager Corps.
Cool. That was episode 14 of the Cult and Culture podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you check out all of our previous episodes. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Earthquaker Devices. You can check them out at earthquakerdevices.com. We'd also like to thank Robert Warr and Henry Wallace from the San Diego Black Panther Party. You can check them out on Facebook over at the San Diego Original Black Panther Party for community empowerment. You can also check out Henry Wallace, who performs as Captain Morgan Lee over at the Coronado Ferry Landing. And check out our other podcast episodes on 31G's Apple Podcast and 31G's SoundCloud player as well.
All power to the people. 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 All power to the people.
No more pigs in our community.
Cult and Culture is a Ruinous Media podcast, proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Heartwork Coffee, Fender, and Diodario.
Planet B.